Hey, podcast fans, it's Jim Banks here on Digital Marketing Stories. Welcome to today's episode. I am so pleased. I've got a fantastic guest. We've just been shooting the breeze in the green room, and I'm sure that my guest today, Michelle, has got some amazing things to talk to you about. So, Michelle Thames, we discovered in the green room, it's Thames, is coming to us from Chicago, and I'm delighted to have you on the show today. Michelle, great to meet you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
So, so obviously, like on your sort of when you come on as a guest, you have a sort of bio. I think you're absolutely the first visibility strategist I've ever met. So, tell me what a visibility strategist is and what is it you do?
Yes, so I help women entrepreneurs to get visible leveraging social media and digital marketing, and that can look different for everybody. It can be through podcasting, through email marketing. I like to focus really on my clients in a not so cookie cutter way. What makes the most sense for your business? So ultimately helping women increase their visibility so that they attract more clients and monetize their skills and expertise. Because my story is I was fired back in 2016. And I was really able to leverage social media for visibility to get speaking engagements, opportunities, collabs, partnerships. And so social media has really changed my life and it is free. It's a free tool. So I'm yelling to the mountaintops and wanting to help as many women as possible just to leverage social media for visibility in their business.
So, uh, again, like I think it's phenomenal that you're supporting, women, because again, I think sometimes women have had a kind of bit of a rough deal in terms of getting on in the industry, right? I mean, yet there's no sort of barriers for them to be able to do the same job, if not, equally as well as men, better than, right? I mean, there's no physical power that you need. You don't have to have strength and muscles and everything else, right? You just need kind of smart brains. And I've had some phenomenal women guests on my podcast. So again, I was really excited to kind of have you come and talk to us today. Um, what is it about sort of women that they feel that they need to kind of have that community to kind of be part of? Why do you think that there's the kind of this desire, such a strong desire for women to sort of offer that sort of coaching and supporting role through a community? Why do you think that sort of exists?
Yeah. So when I first started my business, I did notice that there were just not a lot of women groups for women entrepreneurs to come together. And like you said, I do help everyone. So if you come to me and you need some help with visibility, we definitely can help you too. But the reason why I focus on women is just because that tight knit community. Sometimes in spaces we don't feel you know, that it's fair for us sometimes, right? Like you said in the beginning, we can do the things as well as men sometimes. But when I was just starting my business, I found that there wasn't a group for women entrepreneurs to help them succeed, to help them with visibility. So I said, you know what? This is my lane, right? To really step in and help women, especially women over 42, because sometimes we have skills and abilities tools and resources. We work 9 to 5s, and sometimes we can forget that we have those skills and that we can monetize from them. We go into the workplace, especially like something in marketing, right? Heavily male dominated field. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to approach this and just help my women out. And so I just really am super passionate about helping bring that out of women to really also help them leverage their skills and expertise, but also to monetize off of that.
So you're again like I if you do nothing else other than listen to the episode or watch the episode on YouTube, by all means, you really do need to visit Michelle's website. It's a phenomenal website, really well built, and again, I was like, wow, Michelle's like kind of a really big deal. You've certainly done a terrific job of positioning yourself as that person. I always kind of say most marketing agencies do a horrible job of presenting their own proposition to the world, right? So why would they be any better at doing that for clients? But I think in your case, it's clearly, you can see clearly that you're in a sort of good position to sort of support the women that you do. Um, what what was it that kind of made you again so obviously you help women by offering that sort of community led initiative. You help them sort of through coaching? Again, do you have sort of like regular weekly calls, Zoom calls, that type of thing? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah, so in my Elevate and Empower community, we do have weekly calls. I bring in guest experts. We do sessions all the time just around visibility, around building your business. Tonight, I'm having a webinar about digital products. So, how to create digital products, because that's a really amazing space to go into. But back to something that you said that I think is really important. As a visibility strategist, as a marketing expert, to me, I do think it's important to have that foundation. If I'm out here telling people that I help you get visible and become the go-to expert in your field, but I'm not the go-to expert, I just don't think that that makes me as believable. And so, since I am doing it, I'm in the trenches doing it, I help my clients do it. I think that is a really great just reflection and of something that for me to have as my backbone, right? You go to my website, you can Google me, you can see all the speaking engagements I've done, you can see my podcast, you can see my social media, you can see all of that. So if I position to you saying, or anyone listening, right, I help you with visibility, I'm more believable because I'm actually doing it. I'm in the trenches. I have results that I can help you do that rather than saying, yeah, I'm a visibility strategist and, here I am, but I'm not actually implementing it. So for me, it's important for me to show that on social media and beyond that I'm actually in the trenches, that I'm actually doing this, and that I can help you do it too. So I really love that you brought that up. But yeah, back to my community, we do multiple events a month. We do challenges, just a supportive community to also network and have other women who get it, right, in that same space. So that's absolutely why I built my community. I also do events and retreats. And so retreats, we love to get away and go away places. I have a retreat coming up in January in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we can really focus on our business, but also get away in a different area and have a good time. And I also, like I said, do events. I'm hosting an event in Chicago, November 1st of 2025, that really focuses on monetization, visibility, and systems and community as well. And so I like to do different type of events, different ways to connect with women, and all our ways that just I feel are really beneficial. So yes, I offer coaching, consulting, a community, but it's just so much more as well.
Yeah, I always think that some of it is the you know the secret sauce that people can bring to the table sometimes is your ability to be able to put people together in the same room, right? Because not everyone has the same business, not everyone has the same objectives, not everyone's selling the same thing. And by doing that sort of collaboration, quite often you'll find that get people in the room and they can achieve amazing things because they talk to other people in a safe environment. They feel right. This is somewhere I feel safe to kind of share information about my business. People aren't going to steal it, and they can obviously then take that information. Again, like if you think about setting up a business, it's really intimidating for a lot of people, right? And if you've never done it before, there's so many things. I mean, it kind of really grinds my gears when you see some of these people saying, oh yeah, you just kind of go on and set up a business and you'll be making 10 grand a month in no time at all. It's like, well, how, right? You need to sort of set up a sort of, what's the company structure going to look like? Is it going to be an LLC? Are you going to be an S Corp? I mean, there's so many different things you need to do. You need to have some sort of bookkeeper, finance kind of person, finance software, right? Website, domain names. There's all sorts of different things that you need to, and when I sort of talk to people that are just starting out, I tend not to work with startups because, again, it's not I don't believe in startups. I just think sometimes I've worked with startups in the past who've worked for big companies. They go into a startup mode and they have that sort of almost like entitled. They feel like they're entitled, and it's like, well, no, you're a scrappy startup, and you're not Heineken, or you're not sort of like some big, multinational brand. You're a small, brand new startup. You have to kind of almost go back to the beginning and start again, like playing snakes and ladders. You've gone back to the beginning, and you've got to start working your way through that, and you've got to put in the reps, right? You can't just expect to kind of get to that point. Your skills and expertise will enable you to kind of pull a go-to-market strategy out better than a lot of people. But you're still actually in that position where you're going back to the beginning and starting again, right? So that's always the thing that I find. Like I said, it grinds my gears, and I always see these people that saying, I help my clients get millions of views, and then the post that they put it up on has got like 15 views or 20 views. It's like, well, you should use some of that skill and magic sauce that you've got to kind of do stuff on your own things, right? Because clearly that's not sort of evidenced by what you've done for yourself, right? So, so it's always difficult to kind of make claims that you can't sort of really back up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, so when you sort of got laid off, right? So you're a bit like me. I sort of started my own entrepreneurial journey because I got laid off 3 times in 18 months, and I just thought, you know what, screw this. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to kind of work for somebody else and have somebody else kind of dictating my future. I believed in myself, my own abilities, and that was like 99, and I've been doing it ever since, right? So, what was it about your journey that made you kind of fired you up to kind of take that step?
Yes, and that's super inspiring. And every time I hear entrepreneurs say that they've been doing this a while, it gives me the inspiration to keep going and motivation. So, yes, I was fired from my job in 2016. And at that time, I had started a blog, a beauty blog, and a beauty blog and a YouTube channel. And when I got fired, I said, you know what? I bet you that I could actually go all in on this. I can do some freelance writing. I can work with brands and I can really make an income for myself. And so I leaned back on my passions. I leaned back on my blog. I started having companies reach out to want to pay me to have space on my blog to do different brand deals. And so being an influencer wasn't even a thing back in 2009 when I started. And so just to see the evolution of content creation, being an influencer evolve, it's very exciting. And at that time, I actually don't even have a degree in marketing. So I'm completely self-taught. My degree is actually in health administration. And at the time, I was going to a lot of events and just meeting other people in the industry. And I met a woman who had a hair care business and she was just starting up and she needed someone to do her social media and hired me. I was able to help that brand get to over 500,000 on Instagram alone and also to just build their social media foundation. So that was just motivation for me to be like, okay, well, now you've done all this freelance work, you've helped other people in their business do this too. And then I said, "Oh, I bet you I could do this for more people." And so that's when I branched off and started my media company. And it's been, amazing ever since. And so I, like you said, bet on myself, right? I really love the time freedom. I have a 11-year-old daughter. I've been married 11 years. And it is just so amazing to be able to wake up every day and do podcast episodes like this morning I was on the phone with some sponsors for my events. And so it looks different every day what I do, right? But being able to create an income for my family, me and my husband work together, and just to be able to do that is just amazing. And so entrepreneurship may not be for everybody, but I believe that I was fired from my job for a reason and I am going all in on this. And just again, to hear stories like yours that you've been doing this for a very long time just keeps me inspired. So that is how I got to where I am today.
The thing that, again, I always say to people, look, when I first started, because people say, wow, you're really smart to have kind of been in the industry as long as you have, right? And I'm like, yeah. And in the time that I've been doing it, YouTube has started, Facebook started, right? All these massive $billion companies have sort of started and done well. And I'm like, why didn't I think of them? Why didn't I think of YouTube? Why didn't I think of Facebook? Right. But, again, I look at it and go, back in the day, I mean, I guess in like 99, 2000, I would probably say in total, in the whole world, there was probably 2,000 people that worked in digital marketing full time, right? Made a full time living from digital marketing. I think it's quite interesting. Sort of back in the day, it was a bit like the Wild West, and everyone wanted to kind of do well. And you hear about this sort of side hustle culture now. Everyone's got a side hustle, right? So back then, right, I called it moonlighting. Everyone wanted to kind of run their own business, but they wanted you to pay them while they ran their own sort of side business. And and I was very conflicted about whether you should do that or not, right? I mean, I think if I was going to do it now, if I looked at my sort of 20-year younger self, I'd probably go, yeah, I'd probably be okay with that. And in some respects, I'd probably support people doing that because it helps to maybe potentially bring new skills and expertise to the agency that we necessarily don't have now, right? It could be, I'm going to learn coding, or I'm going to learn, like now, chat prompts and things like that, things that like didn't exist back then, whereas now they're kind of doing it. And again, I think Google have always, like, for all the time that I've worked with Google, I've worked with them since the day they started advertising products in total. They always had, every single person that worked in Google could spend 20% of their work time, so that's 1 day a week, on a sort of private project, right? So it wasn't like they had to work 5 days a week, 9 till 6 or 7 or whatever. They could spend 1 day a week on a side project. I think some of the kind of best things that Google have kind of come up with have come up from, engineers that kind of came up with an idea and worked on it on the side, and then brought it back to the table and said, look, I built this, what do you think? And they went, yeah, love it, it's great. Let's kind of roll that out, right? And if they didn't do that, if they didn't sort of support people to kind of learn things on their own dime, if you like, or not so much they were still being paid, but they were able to kind of learn something that was outside of the scope of their job. I think it's quite interesting in the UK here. Google had a partner program. It was very small. When they first opened an office here, they had 2 people working in basically the dungeon. I mean, it was like a basement, no windows, a bit like my office now. No windows. They had 2 people. They pleaded with me to spend money with them, and I'm like, well, not really sure. So I did, and and they kind of morphed into what they are now. But what was quite interesting is in the sort of pre-IPO Google, I think I want to say they IPO'd in like 2005, something like that. But the sort of pre-IPO Googlers were very different people than the post-IPO Googlers. The pre-IPO Googlers were very friendly, amenable. We used to go out socializing a lot, and it was great. I mean, I loved the people I worked with. And interesting enough, the girl that was our rep looking after us, she was the first person to be employed by Google here in the UK to basically go off and have a baby, right? So she went and got pregnant and had a baby and came back from maternity leave. And, and in the end, like she kind of basically resigned because she was feeling guilty about going home at 6 o'clock, which was the time that they were expected to go home, to go and spend time with her daughter, right? And, and that wasn't, Google weren't piling the pressure on, her colleagues weren't piling the pressure on. She just felt, right, it wasn't really something that she could do. And I'm guessing that that's probably the route that a lot of female entrepreneurs have taken to kind of get to where they are now, right? They kind of don't feel they can balance the being a wife, being a mother, as well as, being a sort of committed employee working for a big company and, expected to kind of put the grind in, do 75, 80 hours a week, right? So they go, okay, I'll just kind of, dumb down my expectations a little bit and just take something and do something for me, right? And that's what they've done. And they've taken their expertise and skill from the job that they had and kind of translated that into, in some cases, some hugely successful businesses, right? Which again, I'm such a fan of women that have taken that step. So they're still a wife, they're still a mother, right? But they can also run a successful business if they kind of get their support ecosystem in place, right? And as you say, like, you and your husband work together, right? You have a daughter together, you support her together, right? And that's the way it should be. I think, it should be, men should support their wives just as much as the wives should support their husbands, and, but equally they should always put their family first, right? So, I've always kind of said, like, I love my clients to bits, right? I've got the clients I work with, they're a small group of very, they're like very close friends of mine now, right? As a result of the relationship we built up over time. But they know, like, I've got a family, I've got, wife, children, grandkids, right? And, from time to time, it'll be like, I'm just going to go and sort of focus on them, right? It's summer holidays now here in the UK, right? So my wife's gone to Malta with 2 of my grandkids, and I'm here in the UK, still working, right? Which, I'm fine with that. I mean, but that was something that we discussed together, and we agreed that that's what would happen, and she's gone ahead and done that, right? But, if she said, look, you need to come, I would have gone, right? And that's just something that I always kind of say, like, you need to educate your clients, right? So, whenever I go to a trade show, I always say to my clients, look, I'm going to a trade show. I'm probably going to be very slow in responding to anything, but if you need me, call me. You got my cell number. Call me if it's urgent, right? If not, that's when I'm back in the office and I'll pick things up at that point. And they're like, fine, great, there you are, done. So, but I think a lot of it is like, again, you need to have the ability to be able to be that sort of assertiveness and put it forward and kind of educate your clients, right? Because I think a lot of people hate working with the clients they have, right? Because they've just focused on chasing money rather than finding somebody that they can really support, right? And how do you deal with that sort of situation?
Yes, no, I definitely agree. It's about the quality clients, right? Really working with people, like you said, developing relationships. I am 100% all in on relationship building and honestly don't want to work with clients who I can't build a relationship with. I want to be this work to be meaningful and for it to matter. And so if I'm just a transaction, then it's not as beneficial to either one of us, right? I want to build those genuine relationships, help you reach your goals, and then how can we continue to collaborate together, and share what we're doing with the world. And so yes, I totally agree with you. Not just doing this for the money, the money is great, but this is passion. This is something because I know what it feels like to be fired, to have skills, and to not want to go to work for somebody else. So if I can help any woman leverage her skills and do that for her own business, great. Even if you don't want to quit your job, because I understand I'm not the person to tell people to quit their jobs or anything like that, but you can absolutely build a business from your skills, from what you love to do. I think you have to be passionate about your business or it probably won't work. There's so many times that I've wanted to give up in this space. I mean, just a few weeks ago I had something happen and it was a very transformational situation in my whole business and I said, "You know what? I love this though. So I'm going to keep going. Like this may be a bump in the road for right now, but once I get over this hurdle, I'm going to see why that had to happen." And so every L, I want to say loss is actually a lesson. It was a lesson in that. And so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to, keep moving forward. And I just think you have to love what you do to be able to do that. There's so many entrepreneurs just chasing the next dollar, but do you actually love what you're doing? Every day that I close my computer, I feel fulfilled to know, wow, I give it my all today to my clients, to my online community, to, at this webinar on this podcast episode. And when I close my computer today, I'll say, well, job well done, right? Because I'm super passionate and I actually love what I do. So, yes to everything that you said. Let's not do it for the money. Let's do it because this is what our passions are and what we want to help people, right? We want to yell to the mountaintops our missions and who we serve. And so that's what I do it for. It's not about the money. It is about the connections, the relationships, other things that come from what I'm doing besides the money. Again, while it's great, we don't want to be doing work for free, right? But it's just really not all about that.
Yeah, and I think it's again. I think if you look at the one thing I've always said to everyone that's kind of involved in business is the one thing that's absolutely guaranteed is things are going to change, right? There's always going to be change, right? Sometimes that will be changed for the better, and sometimes it will be changed for the worse, right? I mean, I went through the sort of dot-com boom and bust in 2000. I went through the financial crisis in 2008, right? We had obviously COVID. There's been so many sort of things where you've had to kind of stop, regroup, pivot sometimes, and kind of try a different tack, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, right? And I think a lot of people would just kind of collapse and go, "Oh, it's all done. We're done for. It's finished." And I think you just need, again, you just need to sort of be versatile, be nimble, think differently, have that community to talk to, people that you can kind of go and bounce ideas off. Because again, sometimes you'll find you sit with three people on a call, somebody will say, I'm doing this, and people will go, "What's that?" You tell them about it, go, "Wow, mind blowing," right? So I'm always amazed at how the things that you think are really easy because you've been doing them for a long time. Whereas for other people, they have never seen these things before, right? And they go, "That's just like mind blowing." And and I think the reality of it is that there's always going to be people that are worse off than you, and there's always going to be people that are better off than you and better than you at doing things. And I've always said you should always defer. You're never the the expert at, and you should be always open to learning things, right? I mean, that's the thing that I've really enjoyed about probably the last 3 to 5 years is the constant change and the constant learning. I mean, we're in this situation now where everyone's using AI for everything, and ChatGPT and Claude, and I'm like, you know, you it, it those are not in and of themselves. They'll help a lot, right? But in some respects, I'm using sort of Chat GPT and Claude and things like that to kind of take the things that are repetitive and boring off my plate to enable me to do the things that I want to be doing with the clients that I'm working with, and that sort of thing. Again, I've seen people that they take a podcast episode and they'll throw it into Notebook LM and create this sort of horrible sounding podcast with two people, and it just sounds awful, right? But great, if people want to do that, knock themselves out, fine. One of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of people trying to become faceless YouTube creators, right? So they're not putting their face behind the project. They're just trying to, grab a script from somewhere, spin it through some cycle, and spit it out with some B-roll, and that becomes their YouTube channel, right? And I'm like, again, I just don't see, apart from the money, I can't really see what's in it for them to do that. Doesn't make any sense why people would do that. But some people are making a lot of money through faceless YouTube, but they're the people that ultimately are a bit like in the gold digging world, the kind of people that made the money were selling the picks and the shovels and the things, not the actual people looking for the gold, right? So I think there's a lot of people that have built tools to help people build these faceless channels. They're the ones that are making lots of money, right? By sort of hyping things up, telling you things that are clearly not true, and and then saying you can get the same experience. And I don't think that. I think a lot of people, when they go into business in any way, they need to have a bit of a reality check when they sort of go into it as to what's involved in doing this, right? And if they're then still prepared to kind of do it, then that's, I guess, where people like yourself can come in and say, right, now we can kind of take this and transform you into the person that you kind of want to become, right? But these are the steps that you need to kind of go through. I've always said you need to put people into a uncomfortable position before you can take them out of that uncomfortable position and walk them forward. They need to understand some of the implications of the decisions that they're going to make, right? And then once they've made those decisions, they can then go forward, safe in the knowledge that you've got their back, you'll look after them, you'll make sure that they're okay, right? And that's where I think somebody like yourself can really add huge amounts of value, right? Because you can help people from sort of putting their hand through a grinder or something like that. So, Michelle, you're an award-winning podcaster. When I looked at your podcast before you came on, you had something like 550 episodes, which was amazing. I noticed that they're sort of small, bite-sized episodes that you make. Why did you kind of like opt on for small, bite-sized rather than long-winded like video podcasts like I do?
Yeah, at the time, I didn't see any women. There was a few women who had marketing podcasts, but there weren't a lot of women who had marketing podcasts. And the other thing that I noticed was their podcast episodes were long. I am a straight shooter, straight to the point type of person. And I said, you know what if I created this podcast and it was like 3 to 5 minutes long and I just give bite-sized information every episode? Now, I do have interviews and I do try to keep my guest interviews to 20 minutes or less. And so I have to prep my guests sometimes and say, okay, let's have those great value answers, but quick to the point. And so, I started off doing it like that. Once I started getting feedback from people, they were saying, oh, wow, I really love how this podcast is super short, it's straight to the point, but I get those nuggets that I could implement right now and see results. And so once I started seeing that people really were taking well to it, I just kept consistent with that. I've been podcasting since 2020. So during the height of the pandemic, I said, you know what? I'm going to start this podcast and I'm going to be consistent. And most recently, I have attempted a podcast a day. And so what I do is I just batch record a bunch of solo episodes. I have about 20 guest episodes already recorded this year that I need to edit and post, but I think that I'm pretty much set up to be able to finish out the rest of the year with a podcast every day. And so I'm really excited about that. And yeah, the reason that I created these short episodes is just that you could listen in the morning. You could listen on the way taking your kids to school. You could listen at the gym. You could listen, while you're in the bathroom and just get those, quick dose of information and be able to implement and see results. And so 550 plus episodes later of Social Media Decoded, I am so excited about what's to come. But yeah, that's why I decided to do the short episode.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been a fan of there's a lady that runs a podcast. I think I want to say it's a podcast. I think she's like a live streamer. She runs a podcast called Stream Like a Boss TV. Her name's Tanya Smith, based in Atlanta. And she's like incredible at like live streams. So, I'm kind of recording this, I'll chop it up and get it all ready. She just presses kind of go live and streams to all over the place. And interestingly enough, one of the places that she's sort of doubling down on now is Substack, right? And Substack has been around for a long time, right? They just raised, I think, $100 million of sort of funding to kind of take them forward to the next level. And what's been really interesting for me, understanding kind of their whole ecosystem. So I think a lot of people assume that Substack was all for basically creative writers, right? And people that wrote. And obviously people like Tanya, another guy called Jim Hughes, they kind of opened my eyes to the potential that you have. And you can obviously post your podcast on there, right? So it's another sort of string to your bow. You have a database. You don't have to pay for an email list. So every time you put an episode out, whoever's subscribing to your Substack, right, will basically get notification of the fact that there's a new episode out, right? And the open rates and kind of click-through rates is really, the engagement's phenomenal. And I think a lot of people are sort of waking up to the fact that Substack is being used for other purposes, right? So they have audio streams, a bit like Twitter Spaces, I think they used to be. They've got, the kind of live streaming. So again, you can kind of stream live if you want to. What you found is that a lot of the kind of the CNN anchors, people like Don Lemon, Jim Acosta, they left kind of CNN. Obviously, Don Lemon left in a bit of sort of, tail between his legs. But he's become like a big deal on Substack. Jim Acosta's become a big deal on Substack. They have a subscriber model, so people pay to subscribe to get content that isn't available sort of to everyone. So there's sort of tiering in there. And a lot of people are using Substack as a route for them to sell digital products, like promote like live events and things like that. And I'm always amazed at how, that there's people that come into your world that you don't know before, and you go, wow, this is kind of opening up. Like, so all of a sudden you've got like a whole new opportunity potentially for you to get in at a very early stage, right, to capitalize on something, that will just, again, I just think I can't see Substack doing anything other than growing pretty rapidly, right? And I didn't know if you'd had the opportunity to kind of have a look at Substack at all.
Yes, I did. But as you're saying this, I have so many ideas. I am subscribed to a few people's Substack, and I could actually see myself doing like a subscription because I have been thinking about like what exclusive content I can offer to my community. And a private podcast has been one of those things, obviously, right? I love podcasting, but I could actually use Substack as part of my private podcast to have the people subscribe to that. And so my wheels are turning. And so after this, I'm writing down Substack in my notebook right now to take a look because how can I implement that in my current business? And so I am grateful that you said that because I've been looking into it and I want to be able to do that. So
And
I think
honestly,
it's a
like,
great platform.
apart from me, obviously, the first person you need to sort of follow on Substack is Tanya Smith, Stream Like a Boss TV. She honestly, she's very open, honest, frank. Again, she sort of talks about some of the things that gone on. I mean, she had a period of time when she had, multiple sort of deaths in her family, and she's very open about them, shared them. But she makes a point. I'm still going to go live streaming. She's got incredible audio, video, visuals. But equally, she kind of uses herself as a bit of a guinea pig. So there's new stuff. She's got people phoning in like a sort of chat show, right? So she's using some tools to kind of get people doing that, right? So she's helping to kind of punch through the ceiling of what the platform's capable of doing. right? Which for me, again, like as soon as I get a notification that Tanya's live, I'm like, if I can. I mean, the problem is because she's in Atlanta, right? Quite often she'll go live at 7 o'clock at night, which is midnight-ish for me, right? So I tend to kind of watch her on catch-ups. But I would love to kind of interact with her live when I'm able to, and I do try and do that. So she always like brings people from the conversation, so I can kind of post a comment on her live stream when she's there, and she'll call you out. She'll put the kind of comment on the screen, right? So get the community engaged in it, so it becomes not just about the actual the live stream. It's about the community that's there, right? And a lot of people will meet other people through that community, through the fact that they're all they have a shared interest in wanting to know what Tanya's talking about. So for me, I think, like I said, I think it's just great that she does that. So
Awesome. I'll be checking out Substack.
good. So Michelle, this has been fantastic. I've really, really loved kind of getting to talk to you. For anyone that's kind of like an aspiring entrepreneur, I can see nobody better than yourself to kind of go and talk to. So obviously all your contact details will be available in the show notes, and all your information, your bio and everything else. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for being such a phenomenal guest. If you are watching on YouTube, I would just ask you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your friends, because then that way we get more exposure, more visibility. If you're listening on a podcast episode, do the same thing, follow, share. That's the best way you can kind of tell me you like the content, by kind of doing that. But interestingly enough, I posted something the other day. I had a new consulting client that I picked up. He didn't like my videos, didn't comment on them, didn't share them, didn't engage in any way, just hit me up directly and said, love your content, love to kind of talk to you about doing some consulting for me, right? So not everyone is going to be somebody that kind of interacts with whatever you put out there, right? They'll find a way to kind of, to talk to you if you put good content out there, right? So if you do nothing else other than that, doesn't matter what pleas you give to people to say, like my stuff, the best thing you can do to get people to, kind of engage and come back is to kind of put good content out there. So, it just, like I said, Michelle, I've listened to a lot of your podcast episodes. That you have a subscriber in me, because I'm just kind of in that ecosystem, and I would love for other people that
Oh, thank you for having me. This was awesome, and I can't wait to connect with everyone.
likewise. So thank you again for being such a great guest.